Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland. Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, main event. Jake Paul warming up for the biggest fight of his life. Look at the LED strip on his fight shorts reading Jake Paul. YouTube's social media star, the problem child, stepping in the ring, his fourth pro fight. All three of his wins coming by knockouts in the first or second round. His opponent, Tyron, the chosen one, Woodley, former UFC welterweight champ, successfully defended his belt 4 times. He's 39, 15 years older than Jake. After a filling out process, though, here in the first round, they tried to touch gloves. Jake Paul said no thanks. Paul connects on a straight right to the body, comes up with a hook to the head. All Jake Paul through the first 2 rounds. BC round 2 scored 10-9 Paul. 20-18 Paul through 2. Go to the round 4. Woodley starts to pick it up, connects, big hand, right hand there, almost sends Paul through the ropes. Paul survives and taunts Woodley by sticking out his tongue. That was not scored a knockdown. BC had round 4, 10-9 Woodley, 39-37 Paul through 4. In round 5, Paul strikes back. Paul connecting, short left hook, gets a reaction out of Woodley. Then Paul licks his gloves. BC round 5 scored 10-9 Paul, 49-46 Paul through 5. Late in round 7, Woodley trying to stalk Paul, but Paul connects on a big overhand right. Woodley clinches up there. BC scores round 7, 10-9 Paul, 69-64 Paul through 7 rounds. In round 8, Woodley needed a big finish. He would not get it. Paul mocking Woodley. The final seconds tick off the clock. Brian Campbell, he did score the final round, 10-9 Woodley. His final score, 78-74 Paul. One judge did give Woodley the fight, but Jake Paul defeats Tyron Woodley via split decision. Paul by money line, minus 190. Paul by decision, plus 700. Here's Ty and Jake on a potential rematch. Paul Woodley rematch, part 2.
You're the one that got wobbled, almost sent through the rope. If these ropes wasn't 7'2", you would have went through the ropes. I landed the power punches. You missed.
If you get the tattoo,
I'm not scared running back.
If you get the tattoo, I love Jake Paul. Let's run it back.
Bet. Let's go. Bet.
Deal.
Make the bet. Bet.
Deal. Get the tattoo. Get the tattoo. We'll run it back.
Now that was part of the deal. The loser had to get the tattoo of the winner immediately following the match. We'll see if Ty Woodley gets the I Love Jake Paul tattoo. Here's Jake Paul in his professional career. Improves to 4-0. Got his first win back in 2020 against a fellow YouTuber. Knocked out Nate Robinson, the former NBA player and slam dunk champion, for a second win. And then defeated former UFC fighter Ben Askren, also won by TKO back in April of this year. And then, of course, just defeated Ty Woodley on Sunday, August 29th. Improves to 4-0. Jake Paul. We'll see what's next. Can he get the 5-0 in his professional boxing career? All right, let's welcome in one of our fight guys. There he is, Brian Campbell, who is in Cleveland. And, of course, he saw this fight. All right, BC. Jake Paul, he said his legs felt weird. Didn't know what was wrong with him. It does go the distance, though, 8 rounds. Both guys sort of had their moments. Both guys showing some fatigue as well. But Jake Paul wins in a split decision. First time he goes past 2 rounds. Paul seemed to land more punches, improves his record to 4-0. BC, was this the right decision? How did you see things?
Yeah, this was the right decision. I had it 6 rounds to 2 for Jake Paul. Look, he got hit in the 4th round. He got hurt. That could have been scored a knockdown, and that was the first legitimate adversity that we've had to see Jake Paul go through. I think he passed that test, and I think overall, from the standpoint, just 4 fights into his pro career, showing us that he's taking it serious, passed that test, showing us some of those intangibles, like a gas tank, able to go 8 rounds in just his 4th pro fight, and the ability to really not get sloppy. We wondered how long could these 2 non-boxers keep up the boxing shtick together before this turned into a war, before this turned into a little bit of a sloppy affair. To the credit of both, they came in, showed a lot of respect for the sport, were technical, never really overextended or put themselves in dangerous spots. I think in the end, though, a big part of why I was able to score so many rounds for Jake Paul is that Tyron Woodley let him off the hook. Had him hurt in round 4, did not throw enough punches per round, did not establish in a jab to a level where in some of these close middle rounds, you had to favor Paul's activity overall. But for being just 24 years old, not even 4 years into his professional career, to beat a fighter with this combat resume and Tyron Woodley on this stage, this was a strong performance and a step forward for Jake Paul.
Yeah, BC. Ty did a good job of stalking him, had him in some spots, landed that big right in the 4th round, just did not know how to follow it up with those big routes, big rights, maybe come with the left. And that's something that maybe Ty Woodley can work on in the future. Paul, though, BC, this was his longest outing ever. What did Jake show you from a pure boxing standpoint? How much has he grown as a boxer, let's say, over the last year or two?
He's grown huge. And look, you know, how much did this forward the conversation of can Jake beat legitimate boxers? He's not there yet. He's only been fighting for a few years, just 4 pro fights. But in this bubble of crossover celebrity fighting where it's non-traditional, and Jake Paul is looking for largely non-traditional opponents, he's pretty darn good for a guy with just 4 fights. And a big part of that, of how he won this fight and how he gained my respect, was not just never overextending, like I mentioned, to not put himself in a spot to get countered big, but his own technique, his setup, his combinations. This was a smart boxer out there, a guy who's really taken some pro critique from some former fighters who are now serving as his trainers, BJ Flores, Jalen Love, and you can see the polish there. The combination punching of Paul was crisp. He targeted the body throughout, and his defense was very responsible. Even though I thought Paul had a little bit of a stamina dump in the final rounds and had Woodley stepped on the gas more, he may have been able to take advantage of that. Paul, outside of that 4th round, didn't look like a boxer, at the very least. And for this masquerade, for this big crossover move that he's making, that was key. Paul looked like a seasoned professional. Still got a long way to go, still telegraphed some of his shots, and the movement wasn't on par with, let's say, a seasoned pro. But Paul can draw a big crowd. That arena in Cleveland was rocking for his homecoming. And for the large part of it, he lived up to his side of the bargain. I thought he boxed very well.
Yeah, and Paul did a good job. Really only got hurt that one time there in the 4th round. We were just talking about Ty Woodley. Ty wants a rematch. Asked Paul to run it back. Seems like Jake agreed if he got the tattoo, "I love Jake Paul." Would you want to see this rematch, BC, a Paul Woodley 2? Talk to me.
I don't think I would. Now, here's the deal. The promotion was exceptional. You got to give a lot of credit to Showtime, you know, our brother company here with CBS Sports for promoting this fight and pay-per-view. Also for Jake's Most Valuable Promotions, who were co-promoter, co-producer of this event. They got people to get interested, and I think for the most part they delivered some drama, and you could talk yourself into the idea of if Woodley was more offensive, could this be an even better fight in the rematch? Maybe. But this was about advancing Jake Paul and his business ventures, and him, if he can win, to keep this train moving. I think he was able to do enough. This wasn't a lucky win. This wasn't an easy win. I don't think marketing-wise you would necessarily need to see this again, although Tyron Woodley needs to, you know, he deserves credit for selling his role in this very well. I think his performance, though, he didn't give himself a chance to necessarily earn that rematch. I thought that one scorecard in favor of Woodley was just way out of whack in that regard. He fought well. Woodley telegraphed his shots far too much, wasn't busy enough. For 39 years old, looking to put a stamp on the end of his combat career, it was a nice outing overall for Woodley. Not enough in my eyes to demand a rematch. For Jake Paul, you want to see him in there with guys who, you know, is this going to be the guy that ends him? I think they have a lot of personalities they can reach out to if he wants to continue doing this pro boxing thing.
Yeah, Jake Paul and others, they did say second largest pay-per-view receipts as far as gross for the year. So they did a good job as far as the numbers there with the PPVs there. Woodley lost 4 straight in UFC, last one 3 years ago. You were just talking a little bit about it, BC. How did he acquit himself? He's 39. Does he have any future in boxing? What's next for our guy, Ty Woodley?
He wants to try to establish himself in boxing. Outside of getting a rematch here against Jake Paul, I'm not sure how many opportunities there'll be for him. Again, he held up his end of the bargain. He put through a pretty strong performance, although I think his lack of offense, again, really cost him in the end. But outside of maybe a bare-knuckle big fight, I'm not sure there's going to be a high demand of people knocking on his door to get back in here and continue this celebrity MMA crossover into boxing. He fared well in his one outing, but I think there was a lot of mistakes he'll kick himself about afterwards, that maybe he didn't take advantage of the opening there to try to prove that Jake Paul wasn't for real.
Circling back, Ty wants the rematch. Of course, Jake said, yeah, you could do it if you get the tattoo. What's in it for Jake Paul to have this rematch? Does it make sense for him to do this after he already won? It's time for him to move on and reel in some bigger fish, right?
Yeah, it's a step backwards in my eyes. I think he passed the test. He learned from it. We learned from it what we were supposed to a large degree. Certainly, you're going to have have regrets on what Woodley could have done. But it's time to move forward, and that was something after the fight that Jake Paul wasn't so sure about. He said, look, I've been doing this for so long in a short period. My teeth are screwed up. My nose is permanently crooked. I need to take some time. He's only 24 years old. He's got many options and avenues and entertainment and beyond in front of him. The world are the Paul brothers' oysters in a lot of ways. I think Jake's going to take some time off and really look at that landscape and say, what's a big fight that makes a ton of sense, going to make a ton of money, and it's going to justify the danger. No one should expect Jake Paul to be sliding over and challenging for real cruiserweight world titles. It's just not going to happen. But should he want to continue, there are no shortage of MMA fighters, of crossover celebrities with big names throwing their hat into the arena, hoping to get that payday with him.
BC, we talked about it, just the WWE wrestling sort of promotions here. The atmosphere in Cleveland, we saw the weigh-in on Saturday, sold-out arena on Sunday, 16,000 in attendance, had some big stars like comedian Dave Chappelle. How big of an event did this feel like to you, BC? Just the marketing of it. How did it all go down over the weekend?
I mean, no doubt about it. There was some carny, cringe, pro wrestling sides to this, the tattoo bet. I mean, if it's not your cup of tea, it's just not going to be, right? But I like what Showtime was doing, putting this on Sunday night instead of Saturday. It's its own lane. I think there's a market for this. I think you need stars, though, and this bubble certainly has one with Jake Paul. And I think Jake Paul has to continue to challenge himself and put out exciting fights. This fight didn't have a ton of action, but I think there was drama. There were things we needed to see. You didn't know who was going to win for certain parts of it. I think Jake Paul has established that he is a legitimate boxing pay-per-view brand, despite how unlegitimate, illegitimate, whatever the word is you may think, in terms of trying to be a real boxer. That doesn't matter. The people want to see him. Some people want to see him get knocked out. If he wants to keep doing this, big business to be had for all those who are involved in this.
All right, good stuff, man. Get some rest. Great weekend. And he is one of our fight guys. There he is, Brian Campbell in Cleveland. Thanks a lot, Brian. And don't forget the Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, a daily MMA and boxing podcast with the latest on UFC, Bellator, MMA, anything inside the cage. And we'll take a look at what's going to happen next here after the Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley fight in Cleveland. Make sure you download, subscribe, and enjoy today. The Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.